नमः ओं विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांता स्वामिन्निति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। नामश्रेष्ठं मनुमपि सचीपुत्रमत्र स्वरूपं रूपं तस्याग्रजमुर्पुरीं माथुरीं घोष्टवाती। राधाकुण्डं गिरिवरमहो राधिका माधवासां प्राप्तो यस्य प्रतितकृपया श्रीगुरुं तं नतोऽस्मि। कृष्णादन्यमजानत क्षणमपि स्वप्नेऽपि विश्वेश्वरे तस्मिन् भक्तिमहैतुकीं विदधतो हृत्काय वाग्वी सदा। श्रीलान् सद्गुणपुञ्जकेलिनिलयान् प्रेमावतारानहं वन्दे भागवतानिमाननुलभम् मूर्ध्नानि पत्यक्षितौ आजानुलम्बितभुजौ कनकावदातौ सङ्कीर्तनैकपितरौ कमलायताक्षौ विश्वम्भरौ द्विजवरौ युगधर्मपालौ वन्दे जगत्प्रियकरौ करुणावतारौ। जयतां सुरतौ पङ्गोत् मम मन्दमतेर्गति मत्सर्वस्वपदाम्भोजौ राधा मदनमोहनौ। नीलाचलनिवासाय नित्याय परमात्मने बलभद्रसुभद्राभ्यां जगन्नाथाय ते नमः। नीलाचलनिवासाय नित्याय परमात्मने बलभद्रसुभद्राभ्यां जगन्नाथाय ते नमः। ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। श्रीकृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरो दीनतारिणाम्। So let us resume our discussion on the chapter 4, Ambarish Maharaj offended by Durvasa Muni. So yesterday we had seen how Durvasa Muni becomes angry and he creates a demon. He becomes angry on Ambarish Maharaj and he creates a demon in order to kill Ambarish Maharaj, but the demon is actually burnt to ashes by Sudarshana Chakra. And then Durvasa Muni runs. He runs everywhere to save himself. And he goes to Lord Brahma. But Lord Brahma refuses to offer any protection. Because Lord Brahma says, he admits his position as a servant of the Supreme Lord. And then he goes to Lord Shiva. And then Lord Shiva also says that, he cannot give any protection to him. And then Let us continue from where we left off. So therefore, he goes to Brahma, he goes everywhere to save himself. But he's actually disappointed because none of the personalities whom he approached actually agreed to give him shelter. Tato nirasho durvasaha padam bhagavato yayau vaikuntakyam yada adhyaste Srinivasa Sriyasaha. So therefore, he became disappointed. And then he went to Vaikuntha Dham, where the Supreme Lord Narayana resides with his consort, the goddess of fortune. Now someone may ask, how come Durvasa Muni, who was not on the platform of highest devotional service, how could he go to Vaikuntha? So actually there are explanations, but unfortunately I did not have time to go through them. But one such thing which I have actually heard was that Durvasa Muni was actually a partial incarnation of Lord Shiva. And this is a pastime which has been, this is personally inspired by the Lord. So that the Lord can actually establish, the glory of pure devotion through Ambarish Maharaj. So therefore, and another thing which we can learn is, it is actually the Lord's pastime here, that despite one may go to Vaikuntha, one may be allowed, the effect of offense is so very strong that you would not be actually able to stay there. You may not be able to remain there. Although you may go there, you may not be able to remain there. The very reason why Durvasa Muni is actually allowed into Vaikuntha is an indication that this pastime is actually personally orchestrated by the Supreme Lord. But either ways, I shall get it clarified. But therefore, after being disappointed, he went to Vaikuntha Dham. And then what happens there? Sandahyamano jita sastra vahnina tatpada mule patitas savepatu aha achyutananta shadipshita prabho kritaga sammavahi vishvabhavana. Durvasa Muni, the great mystic, scorched by the heat of Sudarshana Chakra, fell at the lotus feet of Lord Narayana. His body trembling, he spoke as follows: O infallible, unlimited Lord, protector of the entire universe, you are the only desirable objective for all devotees. I am a great offender, my Lord. Please give me protection. So Durvasa Muni understood. Durvasa Muni was not an ordinary person, as we have discussed before. He is actually a partial incarnation of Lord Shiva. He was not an ordinary person. He was a great mystic yogi. And he was not atheist or anything. If we see how he actually, he was not like Hiranyakashipu. You see how he actually chastised Ambarish Maharaj. If we go back, we will see that he actually admits, Durvasa Muni also admits the supremacy of Lord Vishnu. You see how he actually chastised Ambarish Maharaj. Just see the behavior of this cruel man. He is not a devotee of Lord Vishnu. Being proud of his material opulence and his position, he considers himself God. Just see how he has transgressed the rules, laws of religion. So therefore, this statement itself is indicating that he actually acknowledges the supremacy of Lord Vishnu, Durvasa Muni. He acknowledges the supremacy of Lord Vishnu, and he is also conversant. He is a Brahmana, he is a very powerful Brahmana. He is also conversant that material opulence and position can actually bewilder a conditioned soul. He knows the supremacy of the Lord. But the problem is, because he was not situated in pure devotional service, therefore he misunderstood Ambarish Maharaj to be, a non-devotee. See, he himself was not on the pure platform of devotional service, but he acknowledged the supremacy of the Lord. He acknowledged the supremacy of the Lord, and he was conversant that material opulence can actually bewilder one from approaching the Supreme Lord. He was conversant of this, but still he could not identify. This is the, a platform, very low platform of devotional service also, could be said. He applied that on Ambarish Maharaj. He thought that Ambarish Maharaj was a person who was proud because of his opulence. So Durvasa Muni knew the principle that material opulence could actually inhibit you from going towards Lord. And he also knew the principle that, Lord Vishnu is the Supreme Lord. But he just misapplied. He misunderstood. He misunderstood a great devotee. He misunderstood and he judged a great devotee. That was what has actually happened here. And this misunderstanding of Durvasa Muni, actually this whole pastime was orchestrated by the will of the Supreme Lord. So therefore, if you see now, which verse we are in?
'61.
Yeah, 61. So here, Durvasa Muni actually is able to understand his mistake. When the Sudarshan Chakra came to kill him, he ran for his life. And then he goes to Lord Brahma. And then he goes to Lord Shiva. When none of them could actually save him, he realized his mistake when he came to the Supreme Lord. So he is not like, an atheistic person or anything. You see, even Shukracharya, after the pastime between Bali Maharaj and Vamanadev, Shukracharya is actually feeling very remorseful. He felt remorseful and he also glorified the Supreme Lord and he admitted his mistake. So here also Durvasa Muni, he is not a very atheistic person or, a top class demon or something. He is a very religious person. He understands the supremacy of the Lord. He understands the religious principles. But the only problem is that because he was not situated on the platform of pure devotional service, he misunderstood somebody who is situated on the platform of pure devotional service. Only a person who is situated on the platform of pure devotional service can actually understand things as they are. Only that person can actually understand, the conduct of another person who is situated on the platform of pure devotional service. He was a very great person. He was a very powerful person. But the only thing was he was not engaged in pure devotional service. So he says, he pleads the Lord to give him protection. Ajanatate paramanubhavam kritam mayagam bhavata priyana videhitasya pachitim vidata muchyetayannam yudhite narakopi. O my Lord, O Supreme Controller, without knowledge of your unlimited prowess, I have offended your most dear devotee. Very kindly save me from the reaction of this offense. You can do everything, for even if a person is fit for going to hell, you can deliver him simply by awakening within his heart the holy name of your Lordship. This shows that Durvasa Muni, he acknowledged the supremacy of the Lord. And because of this, he understood. He understood what offense he has committed. At least now he understood. He didn't rebel, right? When the Sudarshan Chakra came, he didn't want to fight with the Sudarshan Chakra or anything. He just ran. He went to the most powerful Lord Brahma, the most powerful Lord Shiva, and then he is allowed somehow to come into Vaikuntha by the will of the Supreme Lord. But yes, let me look for the explanation from the commentaries of Acharyas. I will just share with you very soon in the WhatsApp forum. But again, the principle is that Durvasa Muni actually understood his offense. He understood his mistake. So therefore, he is pleading the Lord. Shri Bhagavanu Vacha Aham Bhakta Paradhino Yasvat Tantra Ivadvicha Sadhubir Krista Hridayo Bhaktir Bhakta Jana Priya. So the Supreme Lord Narayana says to Durvasa Muni now, he says, I am completely under the control of my devotees. Indeed, I am not at all independent because my devotees are completely devoid of material desires. I sit only within the core of their hearts. What to speak of my devotee? Even those who are devotees of my devotees are very dear to me. So, Supreme Lord is saying, you have come to me, but you see, I am also not independent. Now one may ask here, how come the Supreme Lord is not independent? What is the Supreme Lord dependent on? The Supreme Lord is, he is under the control of his pure devotees. By his own will, we are under the control of material nature, or we are under the control of material modes of our nature helplessly. But the Supreme Lord, by his own will, he is actually under the control of pure devotees. How to understand this? Sometimes, for example, I have a small son. My son is 4 years old. And sometimes he wants to climb on me. He'll climb the chair. And, he would want to climb on my back. Sometimes he would want to even stand. He would want to do so many things. If I want, I can stop him from doing. But just in order that he should feel happy, I allow him to do certain things with me. It is not that, he's actually, in one way he's controlling me, but it's because I am allowing myself to be controlled by him. Because I love my son. I want him to be happy. And if he feels that sometimes he's able to, climb on me, climb on my back, stand on me, and if, I'm able to put him, and sometimes you see, he wants to stand on a chair so that he looks taller than me. And I really say, yeah, you have become tall, see, now. Has he really become tall? No. But, somehow, I hope you are able to understand. Most of you are also parents. Many of you are also parents. So out of love for the devotees, for the pure devotees, the Supreme Lord agrees to come under the control of the devotees by his own will. It is actually something which is not conceivable to us, but just I took the analogy. Just like a father, he puts himself under the control of his very young son, so that the son feels happy. And the son really feels happy. But it is not that the father has actually become under the control of the son. So similarly, this is a relationship, this is a consequence of deep love. Sometimes the husband also agrees to, be henpecked by the wife. So it is just analogous to this, but this is love. Love between the Supreme Lord and the pure devotee is actually the purest form of love. We are trying to understand this through some analogies, but this is a very, very high subject matter. That is why in Nectar of Devotion, it is said, pure devotional service is very, very rare. Why is pure devotional service rare? Because with pure devotional service, one is able to purchase Krishna. That is why Krishna does not give pure devotional service very easily. He may give so many other things easily. He may give material opulence. He may give so many other things. But pure bhakti, Krishna will not give easily. Because who gives pure bhakti? Pure bhakti is given by a pure devotee of the Lord. If you please a pure devotee of the Lord, pure devotional service is the property of a pure devotee of the Lord. And it is very, very rare. Because if you are able to get at least a little bit of pure devotional service, you are very, very fortunate. Because with pure devotional service, Krishna comes under your control. Just imagine how dear one becomes to Krishna by following, the process of pure devotional service. So therefore, pure devotional service is gifted. It is very, very rare. Krishna doesn't give pure devotional service very easily. A pure devotee has to be pleased with you. And why doesn't he give? Because through pure devotional service, Krishna becomes purchasable. The Supreme Lord becomes purchasable and he comes completely under the control of his pure devotee. That is the expression of Krishna's love. So by his own will, he comes under the control of devotees. Otherwise, who can put Lord under anybody's control? The Lord himself has to put, the Lord, he himself has to put himself under somebody's control. Otherwise, who can, sometimes we see, we'll see in Srimad Bhagavatam 10th canto, sometimes Krishna, when he was playing with his friends, he loses and he has to carry someone on his back. How can the Supreme Lord lose? Supreme Lord loses by his own will. So therefore, Supreme Lord is saying, I am completely under the control of my devotees. You see, I am also not independent. Who is controlling me? You see, Brahma told that he is not independent. Shiva also told that he is not independent. Now the Supreme Lord is also telling that I am also not independent. You see, you have come to me. All these people have told that, you go to me, but somehow you have come to me. But I am also not independent. Why? I am under the control of my pure devotees. So what is the meaning of this? This means that Durvasa should actually go to Ambarish Maharaj. So because my devotees are completely devoid of material desires, therefore I sit only within the core of their hearts. Why the Lord wants to come under control of devotees? Because the devotees' heart is very, very pure. They are completely devoid of material desires. It's only filled with love. So what to speak of my devotee? Even those who are devotees of my devotee are very, very dear to me. So this is the platform of pure devotional service. Ambarish Maharaj was conducting his life like that. He served Lord. How did he serve the Lord? In the mood of servant of the Lord. In the mood of servant of the spiritual master, servant of the Lord. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has actually emphasized this. Gopi Bhartur Padakamalayur Dasa Dasanu Dasa. Servant of devotee. So he was actually he was practicing devotional service like this, Ambarish Maharaj. This is the platform of pure devotional service. When one actually becomes a devotee of the Supreme Lord. So Lord is more pleased. So therefore, all the great personalities, stalwart personalities, are fully under the control of Supreme Lord. But Supreme Lord is fully under the control of his pure devotee. Why? Because a pure devotee does not have any material desires in his heart. And what is the desire of the pure devotee? A pure devotee's only desire is to always think of the Supreme Lord and how to serve him the best. This is the desire of a pure devotee. His whole desire is to always think of the pleasure of the Supreme Lord. It is not that a pure devotee does not do any activity. A pure devotee can have material opulences. A pure devotee can marry. He can have children. He can be doing his day-to-day activities. But internally, he is always thinking how to please the Supreme Lord. And how can one get this consciousness? One can get this consciousness if one takes to the process of devotional service under the guidance of a spiritual master in the association of devotees in the mood of servant. Then one can get this consciousness that despite one is otherwise engaged in many material activities, one is always thinking of how to please the Supreme Lord, how to give pleasure. And how is it practically demonstrated? One always thinks of the pleasure of the spiritual master. One always thinks of the pleasure of the person who is guiding him on behalf of the spiritual master. One always thinks, if one thinks of the pleasure of the spiritual master, if one thinks of the pleasure of the person who is guiding you on behalf of the spiritual master, what is going to please him? What is going to please him? If one is in the mood of pleasing the spiritual master or the representative of the spiritual master in our lives, that actually means pleasing the Supreme Lord. That actually means thinking the pleasure of Supreme Lord. Let me repeat once again. One may say, If one says that, for me, Krishna's pleasure is most important. How do you know if Krishna is pleased or not? You will know if Krishna is pleased or not only if the representative of Krishna actually confirms, right? Will Krishna come and tell you directly? No. So therefore, an indication of trying to please the Supreme Lord is that we always think the pleasure of the person who is representing the Supreme Lord in our lives. The person who is guiding us on behalf of the spiritual master, or it may be the spiritual master also. That's all right. Maybe the spiritual master, or it may be the person who is guiding us on a day-to-day basis on behalf of the spiritual master. If that person is pleased, it means the Supreme Lord is pleased. Yasya prasadat bhagavat prasado yasya prasada nagati kutopi dhyayan stuvam stasya yasya stri sandhyam mande guru shri charanarvindam. Why is he so special, that person? Because he is the representative of the Supreme Lord. So whether Krishna is pleased or not can be known by whether this person is pleased or not. So therefore, one must always seek the association of such a person. And if we try to please this person, that means that the Supreme Lord is pleased. This is the process of devotional service. Otherwise, you are on a very Kanishta platform. If you always think that, only me and Krishna, nobody else in between, and you keep offending everybody else. He is not doing this properly. This person is like this person is like that. No. How the Lord wants us to practice devotional service? He wants us to practice devotional service in the mood of servant of servant of servant. Otherwise, how? Who would confirm whether Lord is pleased with your action or not? There should be somebody in your life to confirm. So, how to always think of the pleasure of the Supreme Lord? By always thinking the pleasure of the spiritual master, or by always thinking about the pleasure of the person who is guiding us, who is engaging us on behalf of the spiritual master. If this person is really pleased, then it means that the Lord is pleased. So if you please such a person, then it means that Lord is extremely pleased with you. So why to be a servant of a pure devotee? Great acharyas have also said,
before slide,
Adiya Vaishnava Seva Nishtara Payeche Keva. So unless one practices devotional service like this, in the mood of servant of a pure devotee, unless one practices devotional service under guidance of the spiritual master or his representative, one cannot be released from material entanglement. At the most, one can become a very external devotee. That means externally he is doing some practices, but his absorption is completely in some other thing. He is doing. It may become a ritual. Many things have anyway become ritual to us. Many things have anyway become ritual to us, right? So even our activities become, devotional activities also can become ritualistic if we are not always contemplating on pleasing that person who is actually guiding us, who is actually engaging us. If we do not meditate, or if we do not contemplate, or if we do not act in a way to please him, then what happens is our devotional service becomes ritualistic. You may be waking up at 3 o'clock also in the morning, but still it is ritualistic. Because if you do not practice devotional service in the mood of servant, then what happens is, anyway, many things have become ritualistic. This will also become another ritual. That's all. You always feel that, anyway, I am doing all these things. What is wrong with me? No, it should be done like this. Only then one can be released from material entanglement. That is why this verse is there in Guru Ashtakam. Sakshadharitvena samasta shastre uttastata bhavyateva saddhi kintu prabhoya priyaeva tasya vande guru shri charanaravinda. Who is the spiritual master? He is a very confidential representative of the Supreme Lord. Sakshadharitvena samasta shastre. He is the representative of the Supreme Lord who guides you on the essence of Shastras. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also identified himself as Gopi Bhartur Padakamalayur Dasa 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 Dasa. And he instructed us not to directly become servants of Krishna, but he instructed all of us to become servant of Krishna. So one must not think that, anyway I am chanting now, anyway I am reading now. That should be done. But it should not become activities. It should not become mechanical activity. It will become mechanical activities if we are not engaged under the guidance of the spiritual master or his representative. It will become mechanical. That's all. It is bound to become mechanical like any other thing in our life. Even a parrot says, even if you teach a parrot to chant Hare Krishna, even the parrot chants Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. But when somebody is coming to attack the parrot, what is it going to speak? It is going to become very fearful. So we do not want that kind of chanting. Otherwise, parrot is also chanting. We also become like a parrot. When death comes, we are not able to feelingly call out Lord's name because we are not absorbed. We have been chanting, but our chanting becomes like chanting of a parrot. You teach a parrot to chant, that parrot also will chant. But what is the difference between a parrot chanting and a person engaged in devotional service properly chanting? A person engaged properly in devotional service is in a realized state. How to get that realization? That realization cannot be God. That realization has to be gifted by the Lord. And when will Lord give that realization? When we actually practice devotional service under the guidance of spiritual master or representative of spiritual master. How Ambarish Maharaj actually practiced devotional service. Naham atmanam asase mat bhakte sadhu bhirvina shriyam chatyaki chatyang tikim brahman yesham gatiraham para. Oh, best of the Brahmanas, without saintly persons for whom I am the only destination, I do not desire to enjoy my transcendental bliss and my supreme opulences. So, Lord is speaking how important the devotees are to him. Without saintly persons for whom only I am the destination, without saintly persons who are always thinking of my pleasure, I do not desire to enjoy my transcendental bliss and my supreme opulences. This says, Lord is saying how pure devotees are very dear to him. He says that without, Lord is supremely opulent. He is the ocean of transcendental bliss, Sachidananda Vigraha. He is the most opulent person. But that's why he is called Bhagavan. But still he says that without devotees, I don't desire to enjoy. That means Lord also wants to enjoy. And devotees are meant to give pleasure to the Lord. The Supreme Lord is actually self-sufficient. But still, to enjoy his transcendental bliss, he requires the cooperation of devotees. For example, Lord Krishna is full in himself, but still he wants the cooperation of his devotees, like the cowherd boys and the gopis. So he wants the cooperation. He wants many devotees. Just the very good example is that, a very rich man, if he does not have sons, will he be very happy? A very, very rich man, he has so much of opulence, but somehow he doesn't have a child or he doesn't have a son. Is he going to be happy? No. If somehow he is not able to beget a child, then what he does? He adopts a son. Now, why he adopts a son? He is very opulent, right? He is self-sufficient. He has everything. Then why does he need a son? Because you need somebody else in order to feel happy. If you have all wealth in the world and all opulence in the world, but you don't have anybody else, how would you feel? It feels so difficult, right? So similarly, Lord also he wants the cooperation of his pure devotees. Just like a very rich man, if he doesn't have a child, he adopts somebody. Only then he feels fulfilled, because only by sharing the happiness increases. If you don't have anybody to share, then what is the use of having anything in this world, any wealth in this world, if you're not having somebody to share, even in a very mundane way? Why do people get married or anything? Everybody needs company and cooperation of another person. So this way, in this way, the Lord also wants the pure devotees. He requires the cooperation of his pure devotees. Only those pure devotees increase the pleasure potency of the Supreme Lord. And this is the very reason why Lord wants to increase his devotees unlimitedly. Lord actually wants every living entity in this material existence to become his devotee. Because by becoming devotee, it is just like a very rich father desiring to have many, many sons. A very rich father desires to have many, many sons. What happens when a very rich father has many sons? The father is also happy, the children are also happy. Children are also happy, right? So the Lord's desire is to increase the number of devotees. Because if the number of devotees increase, the Lord feels very happy. It's a loving exchange. What is wrong in that? That is Lord's kindness to us. The Lord is always very, very eager that we all come back to him, much more than our eagerness to go back to him. The Lord is very, very kind. He is just waiting for all of us to come back to him. That is the reason he descends into this material world. That is the reason he performs various pastimes, to attract the conditioned souls, to attract the non-devotees. So therefore, this secret is known to a pure devotee of the Lord. This desire of the Lord to increase the number of devotees is actually known to the pure devotee only. That because the love between the Supreme Lord and the pure devotee is so high, it's so intense that when you love a person very deeply, you will understand what is there in his heart. So that is why a pure devotee always is engaged in reaching Krishna consciousness, because he wants to make many, many devotees. Why he wants to make devotees a pure devotee? Not that they become his followers, because when number of devotees increase, then Lord feels more and more pleasure. Yedaragara putrapta pranan vittam imam param hitva mam sharanam yata katham tam tyaktam utsahe. Since pure devotees give up their homes, their wives, their children, relatives, riches, and even their lives, simply to serve me without any desire for material improvement in this life or in the next, how can I give up such devotees any time? Pure devotees have given up everything in order to serve the Lord. They have given up all their material opulences. Generally, people are very proud of their material opulences. They are proud of their wealth. They are proud of their family members. They are proud of their riches. Although, these things can be taken away at any point of time, still people are very proud and attached. But pure devotees, they give up all these things simply to serve their beloved Lord, without any desire for material improvement in this life or in the next. Pure devotees are attached only to serving the Supreme Lord. They are attached, their only attachment is to give pleasure to the Supreme Lord. Or in other words, their only attachment is to give pleasure to the spiritual master or his representative. They just want to serve, that's all. They do not want anything else. Everything else can be kept at minimum. But the main motive is to serve. So to such kind of devotees, Lord offers all his protection. So Lord is asking Durvasa Muni, how can I give up those devotees? Because Supreme Lord is also glorified like this. Brahmanya, Namo Brahmanya Devaya Go Brahmana Hitaya Cha. The Brahmanas and cows are very, very dear to the Supreme Lord. Who are Brahmanas? Brahmanas are the devotees of the Supreme Lord. So here, if you see, Durvasa Muni was a very great Brahmana actually, very, very powerful Brahmana. But because he was not engaged in devotional service, under the guidance of a spiritual master, in the mood of servant of servant of servant. So therefore, he could not be situated on the highest platform of devotional service. So he could not sacrifice everything in devotional service, and he was still self-interested. That is why he judged Ambarish Maharaj. He was a great Brahmana. He also acknowledged the supremacy of the Lord, if you have seen. He acknowledged the supremacy of the Lord. But still he was not engaged in devotional service. He was not engaged in pure devotional service. Engagement in pure devotional service means engagement following the principles of pure devotional service under the guidance of a spiritual master or his representatives in the association of devotees in the mood of servant of servant of servant. He was not engaged like this. He was very religious, he was very great, but he was not engaged like this. And he was very, so there, because he was engaged, he was not engaged like this, he was very self-interested. When a person is engaged like this, he is not self-interested. He always thinks only of the pleasure of the Supreme Lord and the spiritual master or his representative. But Durvasa Muni, because he was not engaged like this, he was self-interested. He was only thinking that he got offended. But a pure devotee never feels offended. He feels, after all, who am I? Even if somebody offends me, I am a very small person. But a pure devotee is concerned about the person, whoever has offended him, he is concerned about his spiritual progress. But he is actually he doesn't take the offense very seriously. But he may take, especially if somebody, very dear to him has offended him, he may feel compassionate for that person. But he himself does not take the offense very seriously. But if you see, Durvasa Muni, because he was not engaged in pure devotional service, he was very self-interested. So therefore, that small action of Ambarish Maharaj, that also, which the king did in order to please the Supreme Lord, that also he took, as an offense. So when you are very self-interested, how to know that we are very much self-interested? The more we judge anybody, we should know that the more we are actually self-interested. It cannot, it is not about a devotee or a non-devotee. If we go more into the more we go into a mode of judgment, that means the more we are self-interested. The more we go into a mode of selflessly serving and feeling compassionate for people in general, the more we are actually progressing on the path of pure devotional service. So it is up to us. If our absorption is not in Krishna, in the pleasure of Krishna or the pleasure of spiritual master or his representative, the more we are going to be self-interested. What is the evidence? You see, Ambarish Maharaj, when Durvasa Muni created the demon, Ambarish Maharaj was not at all disturbed. But what happened to Durvasa Muni? Ambarish Maharaj was not disturbed because he was always thinking of Supreme Lord. He knew very well that Supreme Lord is the ultimate protector. He knew that if Lord wants to protect me, he will protect me now. If Lord wants me to be killed, but my whole, so what I will do is that I will just depend on the Lord. So this was the consciousness of Ambarish Maharaj. But you see, Durvasa Muni, he just ran all over. He was so disturbed when death was actually chasing him. You see, such a great Brahmana, such a powerful Brahmana, and here a king, a householder. This is the glory of pure devotional service, which is actually established in this pastime. He is a king, he is a householder, he has wife, he has children, he has many duties to do, but he is a pure devotee of the Supreme Lord. And here Durvasa Muni, he is a renounced Brahmana, he is a great Brahmana. He has done so many austerities, he is a mystic yogi, he is very, very powerful. But still, he is afraid of death. Why? The difference is that one is actually on the platform of pure devotional service, whereas the other one is not. So this is the glory of pure devotional service. And pure devotional service is not restricted only to those people who are living in a renounced order of life. Many people may think, you see, I'm a householder, I have a wife, I have children, I have a job, I have so many responsibilities. How can I practice this? But in Bhagavatam, many examples of many personalities are, we have examples of many those personalities who are exemplified for their pure devotional service are all grahasthas. You see Ambarish Maharaj, Dhruva Maharaj, Prahalad Maharaj, Bali Maharaj. Most of them are grahasthas. If you take the 12 Mahajanas, except Narada Muni, most of them are grahasthas and Kumaras. All of them are grahasthas. So one should not think that, only those devotees who have shaved their head, who are staying in temple, only they can actually come to this platform. No, everybody can come to this platform. You see Ambarish Maharaj, he was a grahastha. He was a powerful king. He had all opulences. Still he was on this platform. So it is not about one is, a grahastha or in the renounced order. It is not about whether one is rich or poor. No, you see, he is a grahastha and he is the richest person in the whole world, Ambarish Maharaj. Still he was a pure devotee. So it is not about how much money you have. Mai nirbadda hridaya sadhavas samadarshana vase kurvanti mam bhaktya sat striyas satpatim yatha. As chaste women bring their gentle husbands under control by service, the pure devotees who are equal to everyone and completely attached to me, bring me under their full control. So the Lord is actually giving an example of a chaste woman. We have discussed this many times. We have discussed it in 7th canto also. If a woman is very chaste and if a woman is very submissive to the husband, if the woman serves the husband very submissively, or even if the husband may be a very, very harsh person, if she does her duty as per scriptures, if she follows her syllabus, and if she conducts herself in a very, very favorable way to the husband automatically transforms. We have seen Sukanya and Shyavanamuni in our previous section. So just like, chaste women bring their husbands under control by service, the pure devotees who are equal to everyone and completely attached to me, bring me under their full control. Because of their service, they bring the Lord under their control. Just like a Lord, a pure devotee is also equal to everyone. The Lord is not partial. Similarly, a pure devotee is also not partial. So the Lord says here, Sadhavas Samadarshana. Pure devotees are equal to everyone. Mai nirbadda hridaya. They are completely attached to me and they are in the core of my heart and they are equal to everyone. If you see, it is not that Ambarish Maharaj did not hold any grudge towards Durvasa Muni. So everybody speaks of universal brotherhood, right? We have United Nations. We have so many things going on, but still we see that there is so much of war. There is so much of, disunity. So how to unite people? How to attain universal brotherhood? Universal brotherhood is actually possible when everybody becomes a pure devotee, or if everybody begins their endeavor to pure devotional service, then also universal brotherhood can be achieved. If everybody progresses on the path of pure devotional service, if they start their journey also, gradually it is possible to attain universal brotherhood. Because if everybody begins their endeavor on the path of pure devotional service, everybody may be at different stages, but still the center is one, Krishna. So therefore, there is no clash. So pure devotee is a person who is actually learned, because a pure devotee knows his constitutional position He knows the position of the Supreme Lord, and he also knows the relationship between living entity and the Supreme Lord. So he is the person who actually is a very learned person. Pandita Samadarshina, Vidya Vinaya Sampanne, Brahmane, Gavihastini. Sunichecha, Swapakecha, Pandita Samadarshinaha. So a pure devotee is a person who is actually equal to everyone. He sees the super soul in everyone's heart. And if you have such pure devotees, if you have such persons who are, if you have all people taken to the process of pure devotional service, then there is possibility to attain universal brotherhood. And you see, because he is equal to everyone, he can see everyone on the spiritual platform. And therefore, he can comprehend the distress and happiness of everyone. He can actually understand the distress and happiness of everyone. And therefore, a pure devotee is sympathetic to everyone. And what is the chief concern of a pure devotee? What is the chief devotee? A pure devotee, if you see Ambarish Maharaj was not even afraid of his death. Then what can be a greater concern than that? Durvasa Muni created a demon. Ambarish Maharaj could have ran. Pure devotee is not even concerned about death. Then what is he concerned about? So we have a very beautiful prayer by Prahalad Maharaj in 7th canto. We have seen this prayer many times. Naivot Vijay Paradarutyaya Vaitaranyas Tatvirya Gayana Mahamrita Magna Chitta Sochetato Vimukha Chetasha Indriyartha Maya Sukhaya Bharamut Vahato Vimudan. So what does Prahalad Maharaj say in this prayer? He says to Narsingh Dev, I am not afraid. I am not afraid of going to crossing the Vaitaranya river. Because I am always immersed in hearing and chanting your glories. Tadvirya Gayana Mahamrita Magna Chitta. Because my chitta, my consciousness is always immersed in hearing and glorifying about you. Tadvirya Gayana Mahamrita Magna Chitta. Then what is his concern? Sochetato Vimukha Chetasha Indriyartha Maya Sukhaya Bharamut Bhato Vimudan. He is only concerned about the conditioned souls. How these souls are going to be delivered. How these souls are going to come closer to Krishna. His only concern is about how to deliver the conditioned souls who are not attached to the Supreme Lord. How to bring them to Krishna consciousness. That is the main concern of a pure devotee. He is not concerned for himself. He is only concerned about others. This is the glory of pure devotional service. You become completely selfless. Your whole absorption is in the Supreme Lord and how to bring many people closer to the Supreme Lord. So his chief concern is to raise the ignorant mass of people to sense of Krishna consciousness. Matsevaya pratitam te, Matsevaya pratitam te, Salopyadi chatushtayam, Nechanti sevaya purna, Kuto nyatkala viplutam. My devotees who are always satisfied to be engaged in my loving service are not interested even in the 4 principles of liberation. Lord is speaking to Durvasa Muni. They are not interested in the 4 types of liberation. Salopya, Sarupya, Samipya and Sashti. Although these are automatically achieved by their service. What then is to be said of such perishable happiness as elevation to higher planetary systems? They are not even interested in liberation. The 4 types of liberation. Because their whole interest is to only serve me. Serve me means to love means to serve. And to serve means to please. So therefore, pure devotees of the Lord are always concerned about serving the Lord, and they are also concerned about how to bring as many people as possible to the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. Sadhavo hridayam mahyam, sadhunam hridayam tvaham, madanyatte na jananti naham devyo managapi. So it's a very famous verse. Sadhavo hridayam mahyam, sadhunam hridayam tvaham. The pure devotee is always within the core of my heart, and I am always in the heart of my pure devotee. Just like, what does it mean to be in heart? It means that A pure devotee is always thinking of the Lord. And the Lord is always thinking of the pure devotee. So therefore, my devotees do not know anything else but me, and I do not know anyone else but them. So here, Lord is revealing to Durvasa Muni many things about the glories of his devotees. He says, a pure devotee always thinks of me, and I am always thinking of them. So therefore, I do not know anything else. Why he is saying all this? Because Durvasa Muni came to his shelter. The Lord says, I am not independent. I am dependent on, I am controlled by the pure devotees. Because they are always thinking of me, I am always thinking of them. So he is indirectly indicating what Durvasa Muni has to do. That he is saying that Lord is saying that even I cannot do anything here. This is the love between Lord and his pure devotee. Durvasa Muni wanted to chastise Ambarish Maharaj. So, who is in the heart of a pure devotee? Lord is in the heart of a pure devotee. So, Narottam Das Thakur sings this very famous song. Tomara hridaye sada Govinda Vishram Govinda kohe namora Vaishnava Pran. So who is in the heart of Ambarish Maharaj? It is actually the Supreme Lord. So Lord is instructing Durvasa Muni to understand that, you see, in the heart of my pure devotees, I am present. You have come to me, but I am there in the heart of a pure devotee. So if the pure devotee is offended, the father feels pain when the child is in pain. So therefore, when a pure devotee is offended, the Lord feels very great pain. So therefore, offenses at the lotus feet of devotee are very, very serious. In the same song, Narottam Das Thakur sings, Haristhane aparadhe tare hari naam Tomasthane aparadhe nahi paritran. So therefore, you see, the Lord will tolerate. Narottam Das Thakur sings that if you commit an offense at the feet of the lotus feet of the Lord, you can, come out of that offense by actually taking to the holy name of the Lord. But if you offend a devotee of the Supreme Lord, it is very, very dangerous. It is very, very serious. So one should not commit any offense at the lotus feet of a pure devotee. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu compares such an offense to the mad elephant offense. You see, when a mad elephant enters a very beautiful garden, what it does, it completely destroys the garden. So therefore, if we offend a pure devotee of the Supreme Lord, we are destroying the garden of our devotional service. Each one of us may be in different levels of devotional service. We are all on some level of devotional service. That is why we are sitting together and hearing Srimad Bhagavatam every day. So whatever level of devotional service we are, we have to move further, right? It is not that whatever is already present should be destroyed. By committing an offense at the lotus feet of a devotee, all of one's devotional credits are lost. So therefore, one must be very careful not to commit offenses at the lotus feet of pure devotee, because one will fall down in one's Krishna consciousness by committing offense to devotees. One should be very mindful of what one is. One should not judge devotees for his own benefit. One should always give benefit of doubt to the sincere devotee. One should not judge a sincere devotee. One should always give the benefit of doubt. Maybe he is right. So one should not get into this mode, because that actually destroys one's devotional service completely. So you see here, Ambarish Maharaj wanted to complete the Ekadashi. That is why he drank little water to please the Supreme Lord. But then Durvasa Muni, he did not know that this was the consciousness of Ambarish Maharaj. He didn't give benefit of doubt to Ambarish Maharaj because he did not know what is what. He only knew that he is offended. That's all. Me. That's all. I am offended. And you have not followed the religious principles proper. He became judgmental. So that is the difference between a so pure devotee and a so-called so-called learned scholar of Vedic knowledge. Durvasa Muni was a very learned man, very powerful man, but still he did not understand a pure devotee. This is the difference. He became very judgmental despite all his, powerful position. So therefore, the devotees being always situated at the core of Lord's heart surely get all instructions directly from the Lord. Durvasa Muni did not know that Ambarish Maharaj was on a platform of pure devotional service, because he himself was not on the platform of pure devotional service. So he kept judging everybody else without knowing who the king was. At least he could have given a benefit of doubt to the king. He didn't do that. He didn't know that the Lord gives instructions to the pure devotees directly from the heart. So therefore, even if we see a pure devotee's activity, if we do not completely understand it, we must always give the benefit of doubt to the pure devotee, or to the person who is more advanced than me, or for that matter for anybody. Why should we become judgmental? By becoming judgmental, what are you going to get by becoming judgmental of a pure devotee, or for that matter anybody else? Because a person who is situated in the platform of pure devotional service is actually personally guided by the Lord from the heart. Tesham evanukam partam aham ajnanajam tama nashayam yatma bhavasto jnanadeepena bhashvata. Krishna promises in Bhagavad Krishna says in the Chaturshloki Bhagavad Gita, aham sarvasya prabho mattas sarvam pravartate iti madva bhajante mam buddha bhava samvitaha. Then what is the next verse? Matchitta matgata prana bodhayanta parasparam katayantascha mam nityam tushyanti cha ramanti cha. Tesham tatata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yenamam prayantite. Tesham evanukam partam aham ajnanajam tama nashayam yatma bhavasto jnanadeepena bhashvata. So Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, to those devotees who are actually engaged in Matchitta Matgata Prana, Bodhayanta Parasparam, those who are always chanting and hearing the Lord's glories, those who are engaging in Lord's service, for such people, Lord actually gives all instructions directly from the heart. So therefore, Durvasa Muni could not understand that Ambarish Maharaj was actually being guided by the Lord from the heart. So therefore, he judged him. So therefore, one must understand that a pure devotee does not do anything which is not sanctioned by the Lord. Vaishnavera Kriya Mudra Vijnehana Bhujyaha. So even the most learned or experienced person cannot understand the movements of a pure devotee. So therefore, no one should criticize a pure Vaishnava. Or no one should criticize a person who is trying to become a pure Vaishnava unnecessarily. No one should become judgmental. By becoming like that, by becoming judgmental, who is at loss? The person who judges is at loss, not the other person. So Vaishnava, he knows what is his business, because he does what is right, because he is always guided by the Supreme Lord. We have last two verses we'll cover. I know we are a little over time. Upayam katayishyami tava vipras srunushvatat ayam hyatma vicharaste yatastam yahi machiram sadhushu pratiham teja prahartur kurute shivam. Oh Brahmana, let me now advise you for your own protection. Now the Lord is saying, please hear from me. By offending Ambarish Maharaj, you have acted with self-envy. Therefore, you should go to him immediately, without a moment's delay. One's so-called prowess, when employed against the devotee, certainly harms he who employs it. Thus, it is the subject, not the object, who is harmed. You see, Lord is actually giving a direct instruction now that it is because of your envy you have actually offended Ambarish Maharaj. So therefore, you should go to him immediately. You are very powerful, but you have used your power against a devotee of the Supreme Lord. That is what Shringi also did. He used his power to curse Parikshit Maharaj. In fact, it is said that only from then the downfall of Brahmana started in Kali Yuga. Ever since Shringi, the son of Samik Rishi, he actually cursed the great king Parikshit Maharaj. Of course, everything was, arranged by the Lord there. That is another part of it. But you see here also, Lord says that one so-called prowess, your so-called material power, you have used it against a devotee. So certainly it is going to harm you. Thus, you have to go to him. You should go to him immediately without a moment's delay. So a Vaishnava is always an envy of object for non-devotees. You see, it is always the trend that a Vaishnava becomes an object of envy for non-devotees. We see Prahlad Maharaj, he became an object of envy for Hiranyakashipu. In fact, everything which Hiranyakashipu did against Prahlad Maharaj was taken very seriously by the Supreme Lord. And therefore, the Lord personally appeared and killed Hiranyakashipu. So these are very two important principles here. Service to a Vaishnava gradually accumulates and becomes an asset for the devotee. When you find somebody who is practicing devotional service very sincerely, or when you find somebody who is actually endeavoring to practice devotional service sincerely, we should try to serve him. If you serve him, then what happens? If you assist him in his service, if you cooperate with him in his service, that becomes an asset to you. Service to a Vaishnava becomes an asset for a devotee. And similarly, offense to a Vaishnava becomes the cause of your fall down. So therefore, one must actually always think of serving a person who is actually practicing the path of pure devotional service. One must not become envious of such a person. So even a great Brahmana and mystic yogi was in a most dangerous situation because of his offense at the lotus feet of Ambarish Maharaj. Durvasa Muni was not an ordinary person. He was a great Brahmana, very, very powerful person. But still, even he was put into a most dangerous situation because of offense at the lotus feet of a pure devotee like Ambarish Maharaj. Just imagine how much harmful it is to become offensive. Tapo vidya cha vipranam nishreyasa kare ubhe te eva durvi nitasya kalpete karturanyata. For a Brahmana, austerity learning are certainly auspicious, but when acquired by a person who is not gentle, such austerity and learning are most dangerous. So the same austerity and learning for a Brahmana, tapasya and knowledge, vidya, are certainly very, very auspicious. But if the same tapasya and vidya, with that tapasya and vidya, if you don't become a devotee of the Supreme Lord, that tapasya and vidya can be very, very dangerous. So you see, a jewel is very, very valuable. A necklace or a jewel is very valuable. But if the same jewel is on the hood of a serpent, it is very dangerous despite it being very valuable. Manina bhushita sarpaha himasavana bhayankaraha, Chanakya Pandit says. So a serpent with a jewel on its hood is as dangerous as a serpent without jewel. So therefore, material success for a non-devotee, if you have good learning and if you have performed many austerities, but if you have not become a devotee of the Supreme Lord, all whatever you have achieved is actually very dangerous for you also. You see, we have so much in the present society. So success is there, but they have so much of material success, but they are not becoming devotees of the Supreme Lord. So therefore, such material success is dangerous for the whole society as well as for their own self. We see many scientists, many people earning a lot of money. What are they doing with that money? They are doing only harm to themselves and to others with all money which they have earned, with all their material opulence and success. So therefore, material success for a non-devotee is very, very dangerous. So he was a very learned Brahmana, but he was not a gentleman. A devotee is automatically a gentleman. So he didn't know how to use his power properly. And he misused his power to offend Ambarish Maharaj. So therefore he became extremely dangerous, and the Supreme Lord is never inclined towards a dangerous person who uses his material opulence for some personal motive. Brahmam stadgacha badram te nabhaga tanayam nripam Shamapaya Mahabhagam Tata Shantir Bhavishyati. Then Lord is giving the ultimate instruction to Durvasa Muni. He says, "O best of the Brahmanas, you should therefore go immediately to Ambarish Maharaj, the son of Maharaj Nabhaga. I wish you all good fortune. If you can satisfy Ambarish Maharaj, then there will be peace for you." So Lord is telling, he is instructing Durvasa Muni to go to Ambarish Maharaj and beg forgiveness. So we can stop today. If there are any questions, we can take for 5 minutes. With this, we have completed 4th chapter.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you so much for the wonderful session. I just have like one doubt, Prabhuji. Like here, like it is happened, the whole pastime is happened because Durvasa Muni offended Amrish Maharaj. So in our life, like because like Durvasa Muni could know like what have to be done when he offended a wife, when he offended a devotee of Supreme Lord, it is told by like Supreme Lord himself to him. And what about us, like probably like how we can how we can get to know like what we have to do when it like devotees of like when the devotee offended by us, because we don't know like how the offense can be probably like, because we may not do that like create a fire demon, and we may not be kill the other devotee, but how we can say like we are offending a Vaishnava, or and if the devotee is offended, and how we can get to know that, and what can be done like to again have the great, like the wonderful relationship with the Vaishnavas.
Thank you, Mataji. Very good question. When you offend someone, automatically you will know, right, that you might have offended this person. Particularly when we become little sincere in devotional practices, the Paramatma tells that an offense has been committed, right? Yes or no, Mataji? Suppose you have offended someone, then automatically you get an indication from the Supreme Lord that you have committed an offense. So what you should do? You should do two things. If you know how to deal with it, you should directly go to that person and ask forgiveness. Okay? Or if you are doubtful, you should consult someone and express to him that you have done this and take guidance from him. And from him means who? That person who is actually a properly situated Vaishnava. If you go to him and if you express yourself to him, then that person will suggest what to do. Accordingly, you should do. Otherwise, if you know that you have committed an offense and you have to deal with it, you better go directly and ask forgiveness. That's it. And asking forgiveness means it is not just a formality like saying sorry. You should not do it again. That is the greater part of it. You should not repeat it again, and you should feel genuinely regretful for your action. Fall at offer obeisances, take some nice gift for that person whom you have offended, and that's all. Does that clarify?
Yes, Prabhuji. Like, and one more thing, Prabhuji, like, is it like the offense also can be in like different types, like when we talk something, because difference of opinions may come, and that time if it also becomes like offense, then how to deal with that, Prabhuji? Like,
yeah, differences of opinion will come, but you see, when differences of opinion come, we should not target the person. Suppose there may be two different views on the same principle. So we should always look at the underlying principle, okay, and we should look at what is common interest of both. Okay, so the common interest should be there. You should not go into a judgmental mood and hurt the person. You should see it is all possible when you recognize what is your intention and motive. When you are dealing with any other person, if your motive is to please the Supreme Lord, then automatically Lord will give you intelligence to conduct accordingly. So the underlying motive is important. The underlying motive should be to please the Supreme Lord for both the parties. Then the differences in opinion cannot be considered as an offense. But if you go into a mood of targeting that person and speaking harshly that you are like this, you are like that, if you target the person, that is your problem. You can target the principle. That person may want to follow a little compromised way of that principle. That you can put it forth in a strong way, but polite way. But you see, if you go and start targeting that person in a way in which he feels very offended, that is wrong. The difference of opinion will be there. It will be there.
Yes, Prabhuji. So like
So we
every
have
time,
one more
like
question.
every
Yes,
time,
Mataji.
every time, like when we have any difference of opinions, or if like things are not going well, like according to like our own, we should feel like okay, it is like we should serve Krishna and we should serve Guru. So by that way, like we will be able to understand the others'
I will tell
motive
you a very
also.
small example.
Yes.
Say, my son is in the next room. And many times there comes a difference between me and my wife, difference of opinion in how to, handle our child. And sometimes, it is like I have one opinion and my wife has completely different opinion. Now, can you call this as an offense? But somehow we come to some consensus. We come to some understanding. I'm giving a simple example. It happens to everyone. But somehow we come to a consensus, right? What should be done? How are we able to come to the consensus? Tell me. Can you answer? How we are able to come to a common agreement? What is the basis of us coming to a common agreement? We can go on debating, right? You should do like this, you should not do like this, you should not do
By
like this, you should
understanding each
do
other's
like this.
point.
What is the motivating factor for us to come to some agreement? Tell me.
By understanding each other factors, each other points,
Pardon?
by understanding them. By understanding
Prabhu, you
each
are not
other's
audible.
point.
You are not audible.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, I lost Prabhuji in the I lost my network. I couldn't hear you.
No
Prabhuji.
problem. See, sometimes me and my wife, we have completely different opinions on, what to be done to the child. But still we come to a common platform. How is that possible?
You know that we even though like difference of opinions are there, still we have to serve the child and we have to see the child is happy.
Exactly, right? Because our purpose of having different opinions ultimately is not to, have attachment to this or that. What is the main thing? What is the common interest of the mother or the father? That you have to serve the child, right? And in between your arguments, if serving the child gets affected, what is the purpose of your argument? Similarly, when we have differences of opinion, we should know what is the purpose of this opinion firstly. The purpose of everything is to actually serve the Supreme Lord. So that should be kept in the center. Just like if a child's happiness is kept in the center, whatever differences may be there, we will very soon come to a conclusion and we will start working on it. Something common. Why do we cooperate? We cooperate so that the ultimate beneficiary of our action is not our ego, our child. Similarly, we may have many differences of opinion even among devotees. That's all right. That's completely normal. But what is the purpose of all these opinions? Is it to stick to your opinion and your ego or to serve the Lord? Lord's service should go, right? See, if you keep on debating, what food you should cook today for the deity. One person says one thing, another person says another thing. If they keep on fighting for 1 hour, what is going to happen? The bhoga is not going to be ready. Ultimately, right? Service is going to be stopped. So differences of opinion are very natural. They will be there, definitely. Despite your level of spiritual advancement, it will be there. But just like it is there between any husband and wife. But what happens in case of good husband and wife? Immediately they come to some conclusion because they know that ultimate beneficiary of everything is the child. So that should not be affected. So even if there is some debate for 5 minutes, immediately it will be settled. Is that okay?
Yes,
Very nice.
so much, Prabhuji.
Can you hear Prabhuji?
Yes, Prabhu.
Prabhu is good. Very nice class today. A lot of things learned. Very good. Thank you. I put
Thank
the
you for your
speaker phone now.
encouraging words.
Earphone now.
Okay, if there are no questions, we can stop here. Thank you for your cooperation. Thank you for your participation. I'm sorry, it's at least 15-20 minutes more today, but we could complete this chapter. We'll start with the next chapter tomorrow.
Thank you. Thank you.
Prabhuji, there was one
Thank you.
question in chat box, Prabhuji.
Oh, sorry. Did I forget to answer that? Yeah. How can we identify whether a person is a pure devotee? Firstly, before we go to identification, we should cultivate the desire to actually associate with a pure devotee. You cultivate the desire to associate with a pure devotee, and whatever association is available right now, take it very seriously, study Srila Prabhupada's book seriously, and then Lord will automatically bless you with the association of such a person. He will automatically bless you. And how you should know if it is the person? If you do these things properly, you will be able to understand who is a pure devotee. If you take whatever association is available to you seriously, if you take to the devotional process seriously, if you take to Shravanam and Kirtanam seriously, if you take to reading of Srila Prabhupada's book seriously, if you take to going and associating with devotees, meaning devotees means who? Whom already has, you have already been blessed with some devotees, right? You take it very seriously. If you do all these things seriously, automatically you will know who is a pure devotee, and Lord will also bless. It is not that you should go about searching for him. You should always be eager, but it is not that you should leave your part of work. You should be eager, but at the same time, you should be doing your work also sincerely. And a very important part of that work is reading Srila Prabhupada books very sincerely. There are many pure devotees actually, but ultimately it is not that I say that this person is pure or that person is not pure. It is, it should be blessed by the Lord to you. So don't try to look, try to become sincere. I mean, you are already sincere. That is why you have raised this question. Continue with the sincerity and increase your enthusiasm, and you will be able to understand, identify a pure devotee. If you are sincere, you will be able to identify. See, just like I gave an example the other day to our Raghavendra Prabhu. If a person who has joined a company newly, if he goes and immediately asks, I want to go to America, send me to the client location, will he be allowed? No. What should he do? He should know what it is to work with a client location. He should know what is that and all. But ultimately, what he should do? He should do whatever work is assigned to him properly first, right? Without that, immediately after joining, if he starts asking, send me on site, then how is it possible? You should also prove yourself. It's a very mundane example, but I'm telling it is like that. You should be very sincere with what you are already doing. Then when time comes, everything will happen. Understand what is the business of the client or whatever it may be. Work hard when you are in India, in your role. Then that will also happen. But without doing that, if you just aim at that, it is going to be of no value, right? If you will not even understand what a client is doing if you are always thinking about going and working there. First, you should understand what the business is, what the client is doing, all these things. I hope I'm clear. Does that answer your question, Mataji?
Prabhuji, I think she left due to the network issue. I will share this answer to her, Prabhuji, and if she have any questions tomorrow, she can ask.
Okay, we are running out of time. Almost half an hour more, I think, today. So let us close today. Thank you for your participation. Granth Raj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.